Hey everybody, in the making of episode 2, I ended up switching to SFO Grimhammer, which I used when I was playing Warhammer 2. It creates a much more epic experience. It's a significantly more challenging campaign, and it'll be a better experience overall for the videos. Unfortunately, the save wasn't one-to-one compatible, but I had footage recorded up through the Siege in this episode, so I wanted to get this out. So everything up to the Siege will be footage pre-SFO, and all future episodes will be with SFO. So this comes with a few concessions. The unit composition of the armies will be slightly different, with different unit names. Fritz's name will be different, von Merenberg. And the overall campaign state will be different. As you'll see in the next episode, the campaign map will have beastmen already present as well. So please forgive the discrepancies and enjoy. Karl Franz and his cohort were successful in their ambush. The steep terrain leading to the Grey Mountains provided excellent cover and concealment for Imperial troops, and the Secessionists attempted to march again toward Ubersreich as planned. The Emperor's trap was set when the army of 1700, led by Hans Frankenwerder, crossed before him in the mountain pass. The Axe Bite Pass Bloodbath had begun. An opening volley of mortar shells blasted the adversary formation after a series of horns signaled the attack.
It better not miss fire! Illumination upon there!
Three regiments of swordsmen and 4 regiments of Free Company militiamen who had been lying in wait to the northwest rushed from their cover and stormed ferociously into the enemy column's path. To the northeast, Karl Franz raced forward with 3 regiments of swordsmen, 2 handgunner regiments, and 1 of greatswords, flanked by the Reichsguard. Karl Franz would send Frankenwerder from the field before the lines even collided. At the same time, to the south, from behind enemy melee forces, the 2 regiments of Imperial pikemen protecting the mortars rushed downhill to fight as the northwestern Imperial troops faced the enemy crossbowmen. The Reichsguard would rush from melee to melee, devastating the enemy from behind. The opposition quickly folded, causing mayhem, as some of the original 9 archer units would run and turn to fire a hail of arrows at the Imperial army. With nearly equal numbers, the Empire could not possibly pursue each survivor. As a result, the conflict was now without cost, notably for the Free Company militia, who fought heroically against the archers. Taking advantage of the diversion of hand-to-hand combat, the cowardly Frankenwerder would return to the battlefield and strike at the Imperial greatswords from behind. However, the handgunners would notice this maneuver. He rapidly realized his mistake and sought to run again, but was killed by the handgunners in the highlands. The battle was won with only 50 casualties, but in the harsh terrain, approximately 1,000 enemy soldiers were able to retreat.
We cannot! Raise your weapons!
Karl Franz used the opportunity to capitalize on the weakened usurper troops after the captives were executed. Outside Helmgart, he would meet Nicholas Gutmann, a treacherous warrior priest. Theon von Sigurd, who had taken over as general of the decimated army as well as the Helmgart garrison of 1600, would react to Gutmann's plea for assistance. Karl Franz would be outnumbered by a factor of 2. But the fate of the Reichland swung in the balance. Defeat was not an option. Karl Franz anticipated that Gutmann would be alone for some time before further forces came, so he rushed forward atop his warhorse to meet him in the field, unceremoniously slaying him with ease as his troops took the high ground to the north of the battlefield. A dreadful racket of marching footsteps, hooves, and horns could be heard in the trees to the south as Gutmann dropped to the ground. The opposition formed ranks to the south, covering the entire slope, while the Empire waited.
We fight for the Emperor, not them!
Von Sigurd dispatched a screening force, and Karl Franz directed the mortar to fire as they neared.
Show no mercy! They won't out! Ulrich will charge with us! Don't stop until they're all dead! Hell then, how...
As the enemy approached, their crossbowmen unleashed a terrifying barrage of arrows. They could not be overlooked and posed a significant threat to the great swords and mortars. Three regiments of Imperial swordsmen charged across the eastern chasm.
Don't give them an inch!
The militiamen charged downhill and flanked the enemy via the central gap. If the adversary continued to send minor screening forces, they would be defeated in detail.
Fight, men! Fight for our right to live! As long as we draw breath, they will die! Smash them aside!
However, scouts indicated that the usurpers had begun to close in. As they marched north, Karl Franz directed the remaining frontline troops and handgunners to move forward to protect the vulnerable militiamen who were being attacked with arrows. An endless swarm, a never-ending flood of reinforcements surged in from the south. The Imperials could never hope to match the enemy formation's width or depth. More men emerged from the trees, and Karl Franz, accompanied by the Reichsguard, raced westward in an attempt to flank. The battle lines were established by piecemeal skirmishes, resulting in chaos.
Fight for our right to live! Kill everything! As long as we outnumber them, we will hold! Brace yourselves!
When Imperial troops repelled the invaders southward, where one enemy unit would rout, another two would take its place with even more archers behind. Worse still, the opponent was using magic. The Reichsguard advanced to the south, but the continuous arrow fire caused terrible casualties. Karl Franz, who was battling 4 regiments alone, began to weary and received a grievous wound. A general order to withdraw was issued after an enemy firebolt struck the 2 Imperial handgun regiments.
Don't give them an inch! For our right to live!
Fighting in disorganized chaos yielded no triumph. It just revealed the unshielded flank.
Fools! We fight for Sigmar! The warrior priest squad fill me with rage! To battle! This is what happens when you...
Imperial forces rushed to the eastern gap, attempting to re-establish the lines.
Strike these rebellious fools down! Let the fields be sown with enemy blood! Back to the fields, fools! We fight.
One swordsman regiment, or the remnants of it, boldly charged back into battle in heroic self-sacrifice while being pursued relentlessly by the horde of enemy. It would not have been in vain. The lines would mostly reassemble, and the enemy, realizing the Reichlanders' resolve, would flee to the shelter of the stronghold Helmgart. Nearly 1,000 of the 1,900 troops Karl Franz led into battle were killed. However, 1,500 enemy fighters were lost, leaving only 1,000 between the 2 opposing forces. Karl Franz, desperate, offered the war captives a chance to redeem themselves and fight with him. With no time to recover from his wounds, the Emperor and his Imperial army marched to Helmgart's gates. Fritz von Merenberg, who had only been mildly wounded in the previous battle, would command the Siege of Helmgart, while the Emperor would command the mortars. Fritz would not disappoint the Emperor again as he had earlier. Before enemy forces took to the walls, von Merenberg ordered the Free Company militia to surge forward and dock ladders. The rest of the troops would race to the wall and do the same behind them.
Smash them aside!
Fritz would take the same action once the majority of the soldiers had begun scaling the walls, ordering the Reichsguard to assault the gate and win entry.
To arms, men! Blood of our heirs!
Death to the enemy!
The progress was slow, and the enemy's ranged capabilities were vastly greater. There was no defense against the opposing archers. Losses were building up on the walls, morale was dwindling, and advance into town appeared to be impossible, as every time Imperial forces made it off the wall, a new wall of arrows struck them down.
With us! Die, traitor! The gods have abandoned us! Die, traitor! Spread out!
As long as we outnumber them, we will hold!
Die, traitor!
Now we strike forward, men!
Heldenhammer!
As long as we outnumber them, we will hold!
The gods have abandoned us!
The mortar crew fired as fast as they could, so swiftly in fact that one team's volley accidentally hit friendly forces atop the wall. Karl Franz would immediately execute the squad and shoot the following salvo himself. The next shot was sure to hit its mark.
Retreat! The gods have abandoned us! Keep your casting spells! Run!
As long as we draw breath, they will die!
Fritz would attack the enemy head-on in an attempt to rally the Imperial troops, but he realized how futile the efforts were under the never-ending rain of arrows.
Don't give them an inch!
After a while, he dashed for the keep. If he could raise the Imperial flag at the stronghold, the enemy would misread the Imperial army's size, believing it to be much larger than it was. Morale would collapse, and the battle would be won.
Do not trust wizards! Let's have ya!
My god is Sigmar's sword! Ulrich!
Fritz bolted beneath the constant barrage of shots, and he would make the Emperor proud. The Imperial banner flew high in the sunlight, and the enemy fled. Only 500 of the 2,100 devoted Reichlanders who marched on Helmgart remained. The Secessionists were defeated, but at a heavy cost. A council of burgomeisters was summoned to Helmgart, but the festivities were short-lived, because they delivered word that the Emperor's worst fears had been made manifest. A plague ravaged Talabecland, Middenstog had been leveled, and caravans on Middenheim Road had begun to vanish in droves. There could be no doubt. The Cloven Ones had returned.